This video is how to grow asparagus in a polyculture. Everything you read in conventional gardening books will tell you that to grow asparagus and grow it well, you need to have a bed that's dug to a depth of about 18 inches with well-rotted manure. Then you dig a particularly shaped trench and you place the crowns just so, and so on. And yeah, you can grow it that way, but it's a perennial crop. It's only going to give you spears that you can use, fairly early in the year. And for the rest of the year, it's a nightmare. You've got to keep on top of weeding of it and so on, because all the books will tell you it has to be really well weeded. Hello. And you can grow it that way, that's how it's done commercially. But you can also grow it in a polyculture, in amongst other plants. So the easiest way to do it is to emulate the way that it grows in nature. Now, this ties into companion planting or the permaculture idea of guilds, but really it's all just biomimicry. Now, in the wild, asparagus grows along stream ditches and damp meadows, and also as an understory in certain types of woodland. Well, here you've got to try and identify the right niche for wherever you're trying to grow it, and here this is where we decided to put it. Now, this swale berm faces south that way, so the sort of which isn't absolutely perfect, but it's pretty good. And because of the angle of the berm, it'll pick up sun fairly early in the year compared to most of the place. It's like a solar panel. The more perpendicular you get it to the angle of the sun, the more solar gain you're going to get, the warmer the soil gets and the better the plants do. So we're going to plant it on this berm. This berm will eventually be a full-on polyculture. It'll be expanded to on the back. The swale ditch itself is going to be made slightly wider because it's taking more water than we'd originally intended when it was put in. But you can see we've got trees, we've got currant bushes beneath, and we've got comfrey. That will be added to over time with other layers. But along the edge, it's nice and moist because this is the wetland filter that takes the overspill from the duck pond or the paddy field, depending on which way that system's been set up to run, depending on what point the rice is at or whatever else we happen to be growing in the paddy. It's not a rice paddy, it's a paddy. So periodically, once the duck pond is completely finished, that'll have water flowing through it, so overspill will go down and away. But periodically, even now, and this will happen even after all that's been finished, occasionally when we just want to drop the water out of the duck pond to give it a good flush through, because you need to keep that water clean for the ducks. So this entire swale system gets inundated every 2 or 3 months with nutrient-rich water from the duck pond. So it's probably what I consider to be a pretty much perfect situation for growing it. Now, when it goes in, we're going to have to take all of this back. We'll come to that in a minute, just to give it a head start. That's the other thing, with all the books telling you that this stuff has to be kept in perfectly maintained ground that's immaculately weeded and so on. These are some crowns that we got 2 years ago from the pound shop. They got stuck in here, and it's been weeded now because it's going to be on film, but you can see there's still loads of jack by the hedge seedlings, there's moss, it's been neglected, it's been jammed down by a wall and completely ignored. It's had no feed, it's had no love, and it's, it's a really healthy plant. So this is going in. We're also planting up these. I've got a couple of trays of these. We planted a load of seed, and they did very well, and a lot of them we planted up into pots, but pots are expensive. We can only fit so many in the zone 1 plant propagation bit. So this is coming out here, and there's still seeds coming through. So what I'm going to do is divide this up into maybe 5 or 6 chunks, so I minimise disturbance to the roots, and we'll just put it in a few places along just this area of swale. Ideally, we give them another year, but literally it's a case of, we either put them out to let them die, or we at least try planting them and see what happens. Other people have grown asparagus in systems like this. It's not an experiment, it will definitely work. The only question is, will it work here with our particular combination of circumstances and pests and so on? So if a mouse decided to come through with a taste of asparagus and demolished all of this, there's not a lot we can do about that. This is out on the edge of zone 1 into zone 2, so it's somewhere I do visit every few days. When I'm dealing with the ducks, I'm here every day, so I come around and check the wetland filter and have a little look around that, and the rice every few days. I'll just check this as well. Very early in the spring, just before the asparagus is due to come out, we'll come through and we'll just side this bank, and it's not like we're chasing it all around inside a pasture, because you can grow this integrated into a pasture, but then you're trying to work out where was that row again. You've got to scythe a lot, that's a lot of work. with this, we just scythe the one section that we know has got it in, and over time, assuming this works, we're going to introduce these as part of the polyculture onto all of the swales, because it's a nice early spring vegetable and it's stacking function in terms of time as well as in terms of space. So yeah, first things first though, it won't do at all well in this. So even before I scythe with these docks, that before they get fully established, we're going to come through and we're going to dig them out. Dave, we're filming. That's working pretty well. So this one's established. I'm going to plant the whole root ball completely. I'm not going to try and tease it all apart. It's pretty stable as it is, so we're just going to plant the whole thing in. So I'm going to dig a nice hole here, and the reason I'm putting it here is so that it's just about at the level of the natural level of the pond filter, the wetland filter. So it'll be nice and moist, and it'll still be able to track up or down over time with its roots depending on where it prefers the environment. And I'm going to try and come up with the same level all the way along for the younger stuff as well, so it's all more or less in a line. It's easier to find when it's time for harvesting, and yeah, let's dig a hole. So I've planted the established one there, and it completed its root ball that came out of the pot. These are the baby ones here. I'll put them in clumps of 3 or 4. Teasing them apart individually is going to do more harm than good, so as they come apart quite naturally into clumps, that's how I'm planting them up. And so that I don't get bumped straight away, I'm top dressing it with bedding from the chicks. So we're giving them a good mulch. That's chicken manure and carbon. So that's the asparagus planted up. Now a bed planted up like this, well, a swale planted up like this, it's not even a bed, isn't going to perform as well as a really intensively composted and weeded bed in the back. But then we haven't got the maintenance of it either. For a perennial like this, wherever possible, I like to put it out on the edge. This is in permaculture swale, permaculture zone concept. This is at the edge of zone 1-2. It's just edging into zone 2 really. As I say, I come out here once a day, but no more than, and I'm not specifically for this, but it is something that I'll notice if it comes up. It should actually do quite well, as long as we come through and run the scythe at the right time so it doesn't have the weed competition to give it that first flush. Now, this one being a couple of years old, we leave it this year. Next year, we'll see what it does, but we'll probably give it that year again, where we won't take any harvest from it at all. We've just scythe before spring just to reduce the, well, during spring to reduce the competition, let it come up and just let it run its life cycle. The other ones, we will do that. We'll give them at least 2 years to come up and become established before we start harvesting from them. But obviously that'll be subject to what it looks like. This one I'm confident will survive. Those ones might be a bit young, and of course there's always the random effect that if a rodent comes to Pattaya and decides that actually it really likes the taste of asparagus, there's not a lot you're going to do about that. Not out here. But you know, some things do well, and that's, you know, the nature of planting things out here. Worst case scenario, we've got a load more of these young ones that we kept in pots as a sort of belt and braces, just as an insurance policy, and they'll go out next spring if anything happens to these, and we'll try again. But we're also planting up another load more seeds over the next, well, this year and next year, so that we'll be able to do it across all the swales.